Hey everyone, how's it going? And yes, as the title suggests, I did create the faked Springman and Decidueye leaks that were making the rounds recently. Before I get started though, there's a few things that I'd like to clear up. So first off, everything was actually pre-rendered in 3D software. Nothing was modded in. I actually thought about modding it in or making some sort of real-time game scene, but that was way too many hoops to jump through, so I just stuck with Blender. Secondly, the second round of images with Min Min and Detective Pikachu posted today on the 17th were not created by me, but somebody just modded them in and used my pause UI. That being said, here's the condensed process of how I made the fakes. There's a lot to cover, so I'll make it quick. The process of making the fakes was not at all linear. It jumped all over the place, and I had made characters, then stages, and then video, and then stages, and then... So I'll try to separate things into different subsets like stages, characters, and UI. So starting with the characters, I actually made 5 characters in total: Springman, Decidueye, Ice Climbers, Mario, and actually Inkling. I didn't include the Inkling because it didn't really feel like it was polished enough. I say that even though Ice Climbers was kind of abysmal. But it didn't feel like it fit any of the aesthetics of the stages or the characters, so I decided against using it. So we'll start with Springman. He was ripped from the ARMS game, obviously, but he actually didn't come with any gloves, because each glove is like a separate model or something, and the only models made public were the bodies. So I had to go through and recreate the entire glove model, give it textures, make it look nice, make it look like he was in the game. I had to go through like 3 different revisions making it look exactly correct to the game, because I don't actually have ARMS, I only have reference images from ARMS. The global test punch actually came out very conveniently, because I was able to launch it on my Switch and then get some reference for how Springman moved, what he looked like, and I guess I didn't study it enough because the animation for his idle and his jump and essentially all of them were really stiff and not convincing enough, and it's also because I don't think I really know too much about animation. I kind of focus more on 3D technical areas, not animation areas. So that was one pretty big thing that gave it away, among other things that I'll get to in a bit. But I'll move on to Decidueye. Now, ArtsyOmni kind of analyzed this and said that he came from Sun and Moon, which actually wasn't the case. I ripped him from Pokken, and then I heavily modified him. I removed the feather models, smoothed out the textures a bunch, to kind of make it like a blend between not Sun and Moon, but also not from Pokken, so like a plausible would-be in Smash kind of thing. I animated him the same way I animated Springman, which was actually through the NLA in Blender, which essentially lets you create different blocks of animation, so like a different idle block and then like a jump block, and then you can put it all together like an actual game would do so. So with Springman I did a bunch of them, but with Decidueye I only had to make an idle and then like an idle 2, which would just be like him moving his wings or whatever, just to make it slightly more convincing. I don't know, he wasn't really a highlight of the video, he was kind of just a bystander. Now Mario was pretty straightforward. I ripped him from Odyssey, and his proportions in Odyssey are really weird and really stubby, so I compared him to the Smash 4 armature and then moved the bones to match his proportions in Smash 4. So it's the style of Odyssey, but with the body of Smash 4. I made the little forward air effect from scratch, used that in there. It wasn't a really big part of the fake, it was just in 2 of the images that were subpar. And of course, the other characters in the screenshots were the Ice Climbers. Now, the Ice Climbers I am slightly ashamed of, because I know I didn't do enough work to change them, but I wasn't sure how to change them and in what ways, because we haven't seen them since Brawl, and I just honestly didn't know how a update of aesthetic would look. So I kind of just smoothed the textures out, made it look sort of like it would in Smash 4, just made it cleaner, but the textures weren't done well enough, and it was a mediocre attempt, I guess. So those are the characters that were in the screenshots and videos. Now, I had actually planned on doing Inkling. I ripped him from my copy of Splatoon, and I put him into Blender, and I redid all the shaders, made him look like a higher quality version, remodeled the face, did a bunch of stuff. But in the end, it didn't really seem like he matched many of the aesthetics of the game. Now that I think about it, it probably would have been a better substitute for Ice Climbers, because even though it wasn't too much of a match, it would have been better than like still grainy and weirdly saturated textures of the Ice Climbers. So those are the 5 characters that I was working on. I had a few that I was thinking about, like maybe Link, but I decided that, you know, I don't want to bite off more than I can chew, and that's kind of what I already did, so I don't know. Anyway, I'll move on to the stages. Now, as far as the stages go, Yoshi's Island was both a screen cap of Brawl and actually a model rip from Brawl. I imported it into Blender, and I lit it, and I textured it, and I made it look nice, but it just wasn't looking on par with the other stages, so what I did is I opened up Brawl, and I screen capped it at 1080p, and then what I did is I matched the focal length and the camera angle in Blender to the screen cap so that the shadows and everything would match the game shadows, I guess, or the game geometry, and it worked well, but just the aesthetic of the entire screenshot didn't fit quite right, and a lot of people picked up on that. So I actually tried making a stage from Kirby Airride using the city trial map and kind of like splitting it in half and using the top floor and the bottom floor as like fighting platforms or whatever. And I got pretty far down in the pipeline, and then I decided against using it because it kind of really didn't fit any of the characters' aesthetics. I didn't have Kirby or any Kirby characters, so it kind of didn't really make sense to have a stage from this weirdly obscure old Kirby game in the leak, because it just wasn't, I guess, relevant enough. I don't know. It looks good for what it is, but I decided against using it. And that brings me to the third and final stage that I worked on, Spring Stadium. Now, the only assets public that were ripped from ARMS are the characters, and that's it, and I think maybe one or two stage items, but the stages themselves are not public, and the only ones who can get to them are the ones who have like the actual game ISO files and the decryptors, which I don't have ARMS, and I don't know where some decryptor is, so I had to remake the entire stage from scratch using only reference images from the game. And I had to adapt it because, you know, the stage itself is a pretty flat thing, and then there's bleachers right after it. There's no place to kind of knock your opponent out of. So I decided, okay, I'll take the pad and I'll make it smaller, and then I have to make the pad 3D, so I'll use some assets and kind of give it depth and make it look like an actual floating platform. I don't think I made it small enough, which people picked up on, and they're like, where would you fall, or would you hit the weird barricades at the other end? So, I don't know, that's something I could have improved upon. Another thing that probably gave it away was the crowd. Now, since the model wasn't ripped at all, I had to make the entire crowd and its animations from scratch. Luckily, there was a high-definition photo posted of, like, each of the supporters, so I went in and photoshopped them, and then made their arms move, and then put it into After Effects, and then rendered it out, and then put those characters randomly inside of Blender. The process took quite a while, and I don't think it was worth it, but I don't know. It worked for making a crowd, but I guess it wasn't realistic enough. I'm actually working with someone from the Smash 4 modding Discord to actually put the entire model stage into Smash 4 as a mod, so you can actually play on it like it would be a real stage. But that pretty much wraps it up regarding Spring Stadium. So, moving on to the UI. Now, a lot of people pointed out that the UI was either just Smash 4's UI, or it was just some badly executed UI, and I gotta agree with you because I'm a 3D artist. I'm not a 2D artist, and I don't know too much about graphic design, as well as the fact that each Smash iteration changes the pause screen a lot, and I had no idea where to take the direction of the new pause screen, so I kind of just remade the Smash 4 pause screen with different fonts and different styles, and then I moved some things around, added some backgrounds, but that was essentially it. I think the battle UI was a little better, the percentages and the character sprites and stuff. That was very closely modeled to Smash 4's. However, I remade the entire thing, made it look cleaner, used different fonts, and made like the colors slightly different. But yeah, the UI wasn't a very strong suit. Here are the fonts, by the way, if you want to check them out or use them. Now, the video of the leak with the GameCube controller and the Switch was actually shot in the 3D lab of my university, and it originally was like 1080p, 60 frames per second, and it had audio and everything, but 4chan/V only allows you to upload 3 megabyte WebMs, and the audio is disabled, and so that heavily discredited against it, and I didn't like it, but I wasn't sure, you know, how can I upload a video somewhere else and then link it to wherever, so I just stuck with it, compressed the file, so Also, the GameCube controller, people are saying, was not plugged into the Switch. It actually was plugged into the Switch, just through the back. Not that it would matter, because it wasn't running on the Switch, but yeah. So that was the entire condensed process of making a fake leak for Super Smash Bros. I'm actually making all of the resources I used, all of the models, textures. I made a bunch of vectors, I did animations, so I'm making all of this public. You can download it, you can look at it, you can open it up, you can change it, do whatever you want with it. I'm also thinking of doing some sort of Blender crash course for people who like, you know, game models and want to figure out how to use it, how to manipulate them, where to get them, how to animate it, how to work with it. So I might be doing some sort of tutorial on how to do that. But yeah, that's essentially it. I really enjoyed the entire process of making the fake and showing people and then seeing how it was responded to on the internet. But yeah, I will see you in the next video.